The moment Nicole realized that what she was holding was not just an old document or a slightly altered file, but at the core of a crime buried for years. Her heart pounded so violently she felt as if her chest might split open. For so long, she had believed Leslie was merely ambitious, someone willing to bend rules to get what she wanted. What Nicole uncovered, however, was far darker. Secret transfers of money, forged signatures on legal records, a name erased from medical databases at the exact time Leslie's spotless reputation began to rise. Every detail connected like a tightening noose, making each breath heavier than the last. The betrayal was not only that Leslie had lied, but that Nicole had once defended her, dismissed rumors as jealousy, vouched for her integrity. The humiliation of having been deceived ignited a fury that made her hands tremble. Yet her anger was not aimed solely at Leslie. It turned inward, sharp and unforgiving. Nicole had built her life on transparency and moral clarity, and still she had allowed a crime to exist in her orbit for years without question. She replayed the moments when Leslie had wept over her supposed hardships, the charity galas where they stood side by side, the applause Leslie received as a symbol of resilience. Now those memories felt staged, rehearsed, calculated. The realization that she had been manipulated made Nicole want to tear away the mask in a crowded room and expose the truth instantly. But every time that impulse surged, the image of Leslie's two daughters rose before her like fragile shields caught in the line of fire. The girls had grown up believing their mother was the center of their world, their moral compass, their pride. They defended her fiercely, stood beside her at public events, absorbed every criticism directed at her like loyal guardians. If the truth came out, it would not only destroy Leslie, it would shatter the foundation of their identity. Nicole understood that with painful clarity. She found herself trapped in a brutal moral conflict. Did she have the right to dismantle their faith? Could she live with herself if she remained silent and allowed Leslie to escape accountability? While Nicole wrestled with conscience and rage, Leslie sensed the shift, the coolness in Nicole's tone. The delayed meetings, the clipped emails. Survival instinct sharpened Leslie's awareness. She began retracing her steps, searching for cracks she might have missed. Fear did not weaken her, it hardened her resolve. If Nicole possessed the full truth, everything Leslie had built could collapse: her status, her wealth, her standing in the community. And most devastating of all, her daughter's admiration. To Leslie, their belief in her was more vital than freedom itself. That belief justified, in her mind, every extreme measure she now contemplated. The daughters felt the tension before they understood it. One of them began to notice her mother sifting through old files in the middle of the night, pale and restless, hands unsteady. Suspicion crept into her thoughts. The other remained fiercely protective, convinced that Nicole was orchestrating a calculated attack against their family's power and influence. The silent divide between the sisters widened. Small disagreements evolved into strained silences. The once cohesive family developed its first visible fractures. Nicole, meanwhile, could no longer sleep. The file felt like a ticking device in her possession. Each day of silence felt like complicity. She dug deeper, searching for irrefutable proof. The deeper she went, the darker the implications became. An innocent person blamed to shield Leslie, relief funds diverted. A suspicious death hastily closed. Her anger transformed into something colder and more resolute. This was no longer about personal betrayal. It was about justice for lives quietly damaged. Leslie, cornered by the inevitability of exposure, weighed retaliation. She considered discrediting Nicole preemptively, planting doubt, tarnishing her reputation before any accusation could surface. The thought repulsed her, yet desperation blurred moral boundaries. She had long justified her past choices as necessary for survival, as sacrifices made to protect her daughters. Now those very choices threatened to ruin them. The contradiction tore at her. At moments she imagined confessing, surrendering to the collapse, and begging for forgiveness. At others, she resolved to erase every trace and fight until nothing remained. One daughter, driven by unease, discreetly approached Nicole not to accuse but to understand. The vulnerability in her eyes unsettled Nicole more than hostility ever could. In that gaze was fear of losing her mother, fear of losing the only version of truth she had known, yet also a fragile willingness to hear something different. The other daughter stood firmly at Leslie's side, her loyalty unwavering, prepared to confront anyone who dared threaten her family. The sisters' psychological divergence became the emotional fault line of the unfolding crisis. The breaking point came when Nicole arranged a private meeting with individuals connected to the evidence, preparing to unveil everything. She knew the act would be irreversible. She knew Leslie might retaliate, accuse her of slander, twist public perception. But within Nicole, something had crystallized. Silence was no longer neutrality, it was participation. She accepted that she might lose friendships, influence, perhaps even personal safety. What she could not lose was her integrity. Leslie spent that night staring at her daughters as they slept, the weight of impending ruin pressing against her chest. She wondered whether they would ever look at her the same way again. Rage dissolved into despair. She had once believed she controlled every variable, that the past was sealed and untouchable. Now she faced only two paths: continue the deception at any cost, or surrender to the collapse and hope forgiveness might someday follow. Either choice carried devastation. When morning arrived, the air felt heavy with inevitability. Nicole moved forward with the focus of someone stepping into battle. Leslie appeared composed, immaculate as ever, yet beneath the surface she was unraveling. The daughters stood between them, each carrying her own blend of fear, loyalty, and doubt. All of them understood, without needing words, that after this day nothing would remain untouched. The truth, once released, would not merely inform, it would detonate, triggering reactions fueled by anger, betrayal, desperation, and love twisted into something far more dangerous.